Oh, and it's showtime. It's just gone midday on Friday, the 3rd of
Hey,
December.
Phil.
How are you?
Hey, Phil. I couldn't help noticing there, old pal, that my old chum, my old mucker, my old on-air partner, that you sound a little tired. Pray tell why.
Well, you couldn't possibly have highlighted that any sooner if you tried.
No,
But
I
yes,
couldn't. I just want to get loads of sympathy for all the women who adore you. Half want to marry you, half want to mother you and adopt you. That's how it is.
right,
So
right.
what's going on?
Let's
Yeah.
let's just say that I have already worked on 5 hours of live programming this morning. I'm a little bit,
None
but
of it
it's
was any
fine.
good.
Don't worry.
I mean, be honest.
Another
None of it
hour,
was.
another hour will never hurt anyone.
No, of course not. Look at Phil. He can just about talk. Bless him. Bless him.
But that's me normally, so I wouldn't worry about
No,
it.
no. It's not. We've got an absolute packed show today. We've got so hello. We're going straight up to Edinburgh to Veronica Curran. And Veronica, thank you so much. I know you're so supportive of the ABC of CBD, which is the Oliver Mammon show, which Oliver insists that I'm on, and I'm trying to say no. Please do the show yourself. You don't need me, but he insists. I'm like his training wheels on his bicycle. He's perfectly capable. But so Veronica, thank you. And
Just very fond of you. That's the problem. Whereas it's funny because I'm
no.
encouraging you to let me do the show on my own. It's kind of like the reverse of what you have
Yeah.
to
Well,
tolerate
anyway,
on this
bye.
program.
That's a good.
Yeah. Oh, he's gone. What a terrible shame. Anyway, we've got a great show coming up for you this afternoon. I say we. I've got a great show for you. Got a great show coming up for you this afternoon because we have a rather packed Friday. Now, I know I've said that in the past, but those were in the days when we had 3 hours. But no, this 1 hour is
You're on the wrong
absolutely
side. You're on the wrong side of the bed.
shoehorned.
You're on the wrong side of the bed.
What do you mean? What?
You're on the wrong side. You're on the left. I'm not comfy.
Oh, I see. On the wrong side of the bed. Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, no. There you go. That's better.
I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry.
It freaks me out.
No, it's. I hear what you're saying. It's kind of like It's kind of feng shui, isn't it? But all done wrong.
Yeah. Anyway, we have you swapped. It's like ants and deck precisely.
Deck and ant. Yeah. No, sorry. It's fine. We've sorted now. Don't worry.
Morecambe and Wise. Ernie was always on, as you looked at it, was on the left, and Eric was on the right. Let's go to New York State.
Well, hang on. Don't we want to tell people what's coming up on the show?
Nah, it's a surprise.
Robert Elston, who's the chief executive of Status Employment, and they are a disabled charity that focuses on employment, health, and well-being. Quote, for a better future. We look forward to meeting him at about 10 past midday today. Mm-hmm. We're going to be joined as well, as if that isn't enough, by Dr. Emike Okorocha, who has...
See, you could do it. You said you couldn't say it. You said it.
I didn't say I couldn't say it. I said I'd let you say.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not stupid. I just let you wander into that bear trap. I wasn't going to... Hello, now, writing Mum's Xmas cards here.
Might I suggest that Dr. Emike instantly is in our good books,
yes,
because Dr. Emike is a frontline worker as an A&E doctor in the NHS. So that will
This is a very important thing. I was only offered this very late yesterday, and I said, we are having Dr. Emike on, because this is a subject. Loads of you have got either your kids coming home from uni, or your grandchildren coming home from uni, or you're going over to see your kids, and they've got their kids coming back from uni. This is important stuff. So if are you there, Dr. Emike? This is like Doris Stokes, isn't it?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you.
No. It's audio. Apparently, audio only.
Oh, yeah. I'm very sorry. You're audio only. I understand. Okay, in that case, right? Okay. Well, Dr. Emike is there, and we just sort of point out as well that finishing off the hour in traditional style on a Friday, Chantal Ricard's OBE will be here with her look at what is on the box this weekend. I thank you, Dr. Emike. Welcome, first and foremost, to Men's Radio. It's really good of you to take time out to speak to Ross and me today.
Thank you. Even though you can hardly hear Phil. Bless him. He's a little tired punning. Now,
I can't say I'm tired compared to Dr. Emike. You're joking me. He's an A&E doctor, for crying out loud.
That's nothing compared to producing shows. Now then, Doc, what's going on? This is a very important subject. We really want to talk about it. You are suggesting that all the kids coming back from uni should have lateral flow tests. Have I got that in a nutshell?
Yeah, precisely. So we're estimating about 1.2 million uni students are going to be heading home for Christmas. And what we don't want is people taking COVID-19 home for Christmas. We just want joy and cheer. And 1 in 3 people with COVID-19 actually are asymptomatic. And this is more likely to be with younger people. And so we want to make sure that people are getting tested to give themselves the reassurance that they're not going to put anyone at risk when they go home for Christmas. So we're advising for them to get tested before on December 12th. That way, if they are positive, then they'll go and do a PCR test, of course, and then they'll have that isolation period and still be able to make it home in time for Christmas. It's really simple. Tests are free, as in the results are there within about 30 minutes. You can get them at your uni, your pharmacy, or you can order online at nhs.uk/get tested, and then make sure that way you, your friends, your family are safe this Christmas.
It all sounds very reasonable to me, but of course, there's an awful lot of confusion flying around with regards to the tests because people don't necessarily know the difference between the lateral flow and the PCR. And then, is it a separate PCR test that deems you fit to fly, or can you get them from the government as well? Where do we stand on the rules? Because the tests, I think, are quite confusing and not very clear.
It is a bit confusing, yes.
They can be a little bit tricky. So the lateral flow tests are the ones you can do yourself, which give you the results in around 30 minutes. And they're not as accurate as PCR tests. And the PCR test you can take if you're symptomatic or have come in contact with COVID and you're symptomatic. Then these PCR tests. Is it
true that the lateral? Sorry to interrupt, but is it true that the lateral flow are pointless if you are showing symptoms? Is that right?
They're not exactly pointless if you are showing symptoms. You'll still take it and it'll still come up positive. However, you'll need a PCR test as well to confirm if you are symptomatic.
Can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? Doc, can you help me with this? I was feeling terrible, so I did a lot of tests at home, and then I thought, no, this isn't rubbish. So I went off and had a PCR test. It's exactly the same procedure, isn't it? But then you guys check it in a different way. Is that correct? It goes, it's the same procedure up the nose and back of the
PCR test. So it's the same way in terms of taking the sample. Yes, in terms of the swab sample, yes. But the PCR tests are said to be more accurate because of the way they check them. So they take a lot more into account with the PCR tests, and they're a lot more sensitive than the lateral flow tests. The lateral flow are more for just exclusion. So if your lateral flow is negative, chances are you don't have COVID, especially if you're not symptomatic. However, with the lateral flow, if you have symptoms, you need to be getting a PCR. And then that's complete. PCR tests are the ones they use to deem you fit to fly. However, these are PCR tests done by private companies which are approved by the government or the airline. And so they're different to the PCR test that you'll be taking if you're symptomatic, because these ones will cost money.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because oddly enough, I had to look up all my NHS testing today. I've got to go to an event I wouldn't normally, but it's my best friend for his granddaughter. I'm not going to go into details.
Yeah.
And it's a gala, which I would normally avoid like the plague, but I'm going because he's my oldest friend. Very good. Yeah. Now, he just sent an email saying you're going to be checked when you go in. So I got that, and I went on my phone, and the QR code says it'll expire in January 2022. What's all that about, Doc?
So which QR code for which check? Sorry.
On the it's the NHS. On the NHS.
Your COVID website. Pass. Is that your COVID pass?
My COVID pass, I guess. Yeah.
Your COVID pass. Have you been doubly vaccinated?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Where did it say it was expired?
I think
I can't look it up now.
Well, Doc, if I might suggest, well, I didn't know Russ was going to say this, but if I guessed correctly, I would imagine what you're referring to is either you go to the NHS website and get your COVID pass printed, or you get it on the NHS app, your phone. Yeah. And what that does is it just shows that your vaccination status means that you are more likely to be less of a threat to a large crowd than, say, someone who refuses to show a COVID status or a COVID vaccination.
Or you can have your vaccine card, of course, as well, which is a similar thing, because it'll be logged on your vaccine when you've had your vaccine and which one you've had, and then obviously your boosters. So either one would be fine. And sometimes a lot of places still require a negative test upon that. So I've obviously been doubly vaccinated, and I still have my vaccine card. But even still, there's certain events which do require me still to have a negative lateral flow on the day or the day before I attend the event too. And these results can be on gov.uk.
There is something though that really troubles me about lateral flow, and that is that it is all done entirely on trust. With the lateral flow tests, you are asking people to test themselves and to be honest about the results that come back. People are not stupid. If they have a positive test, but they think to themselves, I still want to go, I've got to make sure I've got something that says it's negative. All they have to do is put into the government website that they've had a negative result, and then bang, they're granted entry. And that, to me, is the most terrifying thing, is that people are entirely in charge of controlling the virus. And that is on the basis that someone wholeheartedly believes in trying to control it and helps to become the cure, as it were, less the cause of the virus.
Yeah, that's moral obligation, I guess. That's what it comes down to. But I feel like that's kind of been the situation for us throughout the pandemic. It's more obligation.
For sure. Yeah, for sure it has. And there's no doubt in my mind that's why this nonsense is dragging on longer than it has to, is because of people's behavior.
If like, you'd have to be a certain type of person to know that you have COVID in the positive test and still go and put people at risk by going to a crowded event.
They don't care, but they don't care. They simply don't care. I was sent a video by somebody very senior this week of a group of people trying to sue the NHS. I mean, this bunch of idiots going in, and they're saying the whole thing's a hoax and the whole thing is fraud. And how can we possibly hope to get rid of this with these idiots floating about?
Well, we hope they're the small minority, but it is frustrating when you think about people who've lost their lives and lost their loved ones to COVID, and then you have people there saying it's a hoax and whatnot. And I've seen COVID obviously firsthand. I worked on a COVID ward. I've seen patients die from COVID. I pronounced them dead from COVID. So it's frustrating when people tell you it's a hoax and the vaccine's just a ploy and this and that. But that's society. People are always going to have delusional. People are always going to have like delusional theories about COVID and coronavirus, but we want to make sure that those are the minority. And I think in general, people do understand how dire the situation is we're in and how serious COVID is. And people,
I was going to say, I think that is the main thing to cling on to, though. Sorry to interrupt. The main thing to cling on to is that we hear about, frankly, the lunatic fringe because they make the most noise. I believe that by and large, people do know how to behave.
Yeah, precisely. You can tell this by the vaccine numbers. And over 66% of us, especially younger people now, are getting vaccinated, and almost like 80 people have had at least one jab. It shows you that the vast minority do believe in COVID and are doing the justice of keeping themselves safe by getting vaccinated. However, you will get that small minority who will go out there and the anti-vaxxers, and they'll go and make a lot of noise and tell you how COVID doesn't exist and how the vaccines are ploy. And there's not much you can do with them. The best thing we can do is give everyone the information that we have to make people make informed decisions about their own healthcare.
But do you think we're getting the right information, though? Because this one of the biggest bugbears that I've heard people say, and I wholeheartedly agree with this, I have to tell you, is that the number of times we hear that someone has lost their life, sadly, with COVID, the number of new cases we're told about, but not necessarily those who are hospitalized and not necessarily those who have sadly lost their lives. What we're looking at, I think, is the wrong information. If we're told categorically that someone's life has come to an end because of COVID, not because within the past 28 days they've tested positive for it, do you think that more people would be won over by that? Because then the figures would be more accurate?
It's a difficult one to say because people die from a lot of different factors. However, obviously the criteria is if you've tested positive for COVID and then you've been pronounced dead. But when you do have COVID, it does weaken the immune system. It does weaken the body in general, which means you're more susceptible to die from anything else as well. So having COVID obviously can be a collateral when pronouncing in terms of death. However, it's to die just from COVID. It's very difficult to distinguish unless you have no comorbidities and you're generally fit and well, and then COVID has brought you into the ITU and they can't find anything else. Remember, COVID has a lot of complications. So COVID pneumonia often forms, and these people are the ones who go to ITU, and these people are the ones that don't make it. But I think generally when it comes down to the population, it's not going to be the numbers of people dying. It's just going to be the general well-being of our community, the general well-being of our population in terms of people taking that initiative and making sure they get vaccinated and making sure they're getting tested and not spreading it to loved ones. Like somebody popped on the screen, their friend passed away recently from COVID. We do know that COVID is mutating. We do know there are more variants coming. We've seen the Delta variant from last year. We've seen Omicron variant come out now. And we know that the way we can get through this is to basically make sure that we keep ourselves safe. And how do we do that? Make sure we're all vaccinated, getting the boosters if we're eligible, and then making sure we're regularly testing and wearing masks in public transport and crowded places, washing our hands and social distancing where appropriate. We all need to be sensible, because if not,
I had to go into town yesterday. I took public transport because it would have been awkward where I had to go to park. I had to go for a meeting. Someone was in from New York. I double mask when I'm on public transport.
Okay.
I double mask and wear glasses. I mean, like not sighted glasses, just to protect my eyes, and I wear gloves.
Yeah.
Okay. The number of people who wouldn't mask up, and I just wanted to bash them. And they didn't have exemptions, I can assure you. They weren't people who had exemptions, and please not have, let's have all the crybabies going on saying, oh, you don't know if they have. No, they just didn't. They were just lazy. What do you say to these people? You're a doctor. I mean, I know what I'd say, but I'm not a doctor.
What can I say to these people? I mean, they know the risks. They know what masks do. They know why we're wearing them. They know they're mandatory, especially here in London on the TfL. But people will always be people at the end of the day. Like there's very little you can do. You just hope that the good in people, like when I got on there, I have a number of masks. I was actually working for a PPE company and distributing and copying them masks, during the pandemic. So I understand that it's difficult because these people generally feel that there's a minimal risk to themselves. However, there's a maximum risk to many other people.
It's the other people I don't care about. I'll be honest with you, doctor. I don't care about them. If they're going to be that stupid and don't want to wear a mask and drop dead 10 minutes later, you know what? It's not my problem. But it's my problem if they give me or my fellow passengers something because they're so arrogant and selfish. That's what annoys me.
100%
just to offer some sort of alternative perspective on this, because again, I work with an awful lot of people who do have an alternative perspective on this particular debate, especially around mask wearing. Now, I personally adhere to wearing masks. If I'm told that something is the rules, I will follow the rules. I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't necessarily like it, but I hear an awful lot of people who say that the masks are pointless unless they are medical grade masks. And as a result of it, they find information that backs their narrative, and they subsequently decide they're not going to wear masks. They're just going to be stubborn, and they'll probably risk the fine that they may receive if they are caught not wearing a mask where they should do. How do you argue with someone who is determined to find information that backs their theory, whether it is right or wrong or not? So you can't really argue with someone like that. Is there too much information out there?
Because they're idiots.
Those are the delusional theorists that are finding information about 5G and Bill Gates and the vaccine and people monitoring. Those people will always find some sort of kooky source where they get their information, because there'll be people like them who will be spreading information like that. We already know just how useful masks are in terms of reducing air droplets and the spread of COVID. So for somebody to tell you, oh, the masks don't let you breathe and the masks don't work, and then there's no point, that's complete rubbish. Complete and utter rubbish, because the science is there. The science is there, and it's been trialed and it's been theorized. So
you see,
I think it's the same as people. I think it's exactly the same with people who think that the Earth is flat. The Earth is not flat; it is round. That is fact. Exactly. These people are convinced. You can't argue with these people. In my opinion, are mentally ill. Sorry, I think
but you see, the problem is, though, I almost don't blame them. I tell you why. It's because the information is out there. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily out there from official sources. That's, not necessarily the point here. But no. I agree completely. Is it correct information? And I feel that this is the problem. There is information overload out there. And what happens with individuals who are going around denying following the rules in one way or another, or objecting to following the rules one way or another, because they have found some information that suits their narrative, I wholeheartedly believe that they are actually the people in society who need the most help right about now, is because they clearly are struggling mentally to come to terms with what is going on in their world. And the only way that they can try and fight it is to find potentially false information, or at least, let me put it this way, information that suits their narrative, and use that as an excuse to not follow the rules. I actually feel sorry for them, but I more importantly feel that they need help.
I have no sympathy for them whatsoever.
They do need help, but it's difficult to help people who don't want to be helped or don't feel they need help. These people feel they're in the right, and it's very difficult to argue with someone who feels that they're in the right. So, unfortunately, you just let them be. And like there was the report of, he called himself Mr. Anti-Vax. There's a guy who was completely against the vaccine. He actually used to make videos about the COVID vaccine, and he refused to get it. And unfortunately, he was succumbed and died from COVID. And his family came out and did a video to warn others about COVID. And this man obviously was a big advocate on the fact that coronavirus doesn't really exist, and it's it's not going to affect him, and the vaccines are a ploy from the government, and this so watch and whatnot. And I think he was in his 60s, and at the time he was very eligible to get his jabs, but obviously refused, and he passed away from COVID. And his family were devastated, but he couldn't be helped. They tried to get him to get jabbed. They tried to speak sense to him, and by that time it was too late. He was in ITU and he passed away. And I think they've tried to use that as an example to tell people, listen, he saw the effects firsthand, unfortunately for him. And this is somebody who you could go and check, and he had multiple videos and posts of information he found online which suited his argument as to why coronavirus doesn't exist, or it's mild at best, and it's used to control the population, and the vaccine's a way of controlling the population. And now, unfortunately, look where he is. And it just lets you know that
absolute bonkers.
Yeah, it's staggering to me. I couldn't believe it when I read it. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But ideology is a very difficult thing to shake. I saw a family who the father passed away from COVID. I pronounced him dead, and the family members still refused to get vaccinated. They still went.
What?
After watching their father die from COVID, they still refused to get vaccinated.
Dr. Mika, can I just double check? Sorry, do we have to let you go? Because I'm sure you're doing other interviews. So.
Oh yes, sorry, I am.
Right. In that case, I think we better let you go. But thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, because we really, really do appreciate it. And it just such
I do have another one.
Clear, precise insight, which has really been helpful. So thank you so much. It's Dr. Emeka Okorocha, who's a frontline NHS A&E doctor. Amazing stuff. Thank you very much indeed to Dr. Emeka. Gracious.
See, here's the thing. There's a proper doctor, trained, not some idiot who's a hairdresser or a plumber, or I mean, not plumbers are idiots, but you know what I'm saying. This is someone who's trained, who knows what the hell they're doing. It's outrageous. Yeah. It's outrageous.
But this is what really frustrates me, though, and this is why I think that
these fruitcakes are prolonging this shit, and that's what.
Totally. That's what I think. That's what annoys me.
No sympathy for these idiots whatsoever.
But you have to. It's part and parcel of our remit. Seriously, they clearly are struggling mentally to absorb what is happening in the world around them. It's not our remit to turn around and say we've got no sympathy for someone in that position.
I don't. Phil, I'm sorry. I don't. There's only so much sympathy to go around. People are struggling. These people are making it worse. They're a danger. And I don't feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for everybody else that they're putting at risk. That's what I feel.
But it's clear to me, anyway, that they are obviously struggling to absorb information based on the world that's around them. And that, to me, is a clear sign of someone struggling mentally. And I don't think it's...
vote and they can drive.
I don't believe it's within the remit of our station to turn around to someone and say that we don't sympathize with them, because I think they deserve sympathy. But they're clearly struggling.
Why should I lie? I've always been honest since I started broadcasting in 1984. I've never lied. I've always been honest, and I'm not going to come on to the station that I co-founded and say I feel really sorry for these. I don't feel sorry for these people. I feel sorry for the rest of us because they're putting it at risk. Screw them.
But it doesn't mean that we can't be angry with them. I'm angry with them for dragging this out longer than needs to be. But what I would suggest is that the frustration needs to be aimed at making sure there are better regulations out there for the idiots who are providing misinformation. I think clamp down on social media companies and websites, news outlets, whoever it is, that are providing very clearly, openly and honestly false information. Find the hell out of them. Let them help to pay for this mess that we are in, and bring them to task knowing full well that they're... Bringing them, hang on. Let me literally just say this one thing, okay, and then I promise I'll shut up. But bring them to task for knowing that they are the ones who are contributing to dragging this nonsense on longer than it has to.
And you know what? I've been watching because Jack Dorsey, who was the CEO of Twitter, has stepped down. And have you ever seen him interviewed? Holy God, I've seen a lot of interviews with Jack Dorsey. Jesus. Now you understand why the world is where it is. Let's crack on. And by the way, when he stepped down, their share price immediately rocketed up 11%. That's what they think of Jack Dorsey. What a fruitcake. Right. Okay, let's bring on our next guest. I know it's like Victoria Station today. Robert Elston, are you there? Like magic, but you need to drop your camera down a bit. I can't see you properly.
That's the ticket.
Hopefully, I'm there. I've lost you on the stream, but
I see. No, we can hear and see you. We can hear and see you. But I would suggest though that at the moment, whereas before we'd lost the bottom of your chin, we've now lost the top of your head. So maybe somewhere in the middle of the camera. That's the ticket. There we go. There we go.
It's a bit like Bernie the Bolt, isn't it?
It really is. Up a bit, up it, up a bit. Down a bit, down a bit, down a bit. Fire!
Because he'll think he'll give. No, that's perfect. All that's missing is Anne Aston.
I've got you
then
back.
We've got the whole. We've got the whole thing.
No, sorry
Excellent.
about that, folks.
Don't worry about it, Robert. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Tell us all about yourself, because I was looking it all up and it looked marvelous. That's why we wanted you on the show.
Okay, well, my name's Robert Elston. I've been involved in helping disabled people find employment since 1986, so that's why my hair is grey and long.
What's my excuse?
I don't know. I don't know.
I put up with Phil.
I have no idea what life you've lived, but
a very, very hard one.
When I first started, the idea of disabled people in employment was not mainstream, and for those of you my age, you can probably remember what would be called the alligator chain, where you saw people with learning disabilities, and there would be about 10 of them being taken out into society. Unfortunately, we've changed that. And when I first started, we would have shops go around and say, we cannot employ this person because they look too handicapped. And there was no redress, and there was no way that you could actually say to that shop that they were wrong. But over a period of time, we have shown that people with disabilities can actually gain jobs, hold down jobs properly, and actually contribute, which they want to do. So from there, I'd worked for a number of years for a council. It was called an organisation called Blake's Wharf, and it was one of the very first ever supported employment agencies. The idea is that you help people into open paid jobs. So you're not trying to get them into jobs that are subsidised. You're trying to get them into jobs, and you will train them to do those jobs. More recently, in my organisation, Status Employment, which I've been there for close on to 20 years, we're an agency, again, that helps disabled people into employment. We have a big contract with both Lambeth and Croydon that helps people with severe and enduring mental health needs, where people who are looking to get back into work, we will help them. And it's the same system that we use. It's not complicated. It's called place, train, and support. So if someone's coming to us, we do what we would call a detailed vocational profile. After that vocational profile, we'll look at the right types of jobs and the support strategy that that person would need to actually do that job. During my working life, I've been very, very fortunate. I've been involved in some very innovative projects. Back 10 years ago, we started recognizing that health was a good thing, and that actually helped people who were in jobs. And so we created our own football team, and we did that with the help of Charlton Athletic. And it doesn't sound straight away as what has a football team got to do with jobs? But in actual fact, what was very interesting, we have a lot of candidates who may come to us, and we almost call them the no-butters. No, I would get a job, but I've been in a long stay hospital. Or no, I would get a job, but I'm overweight. Or no, I would get a job, but I find it very difficult to get up. And we found that the people who went to the football team started feeling fitter, started feeling better about themselves, and started changing their language a bit. And the language was, well, if I was to think about getting a job, how can you help us? And that was incredibly important, because that language shift started actually helping that person positively. So then we could use that supported employment, or people might know it as individual placement and support. The idea that you actually put a person into a job and that you train and support. And you support both the candidate and the employer as well to make sure that happens. From the football team, I had a very quirky employment consultant, fantastic, brilliant woman, and she decided that that trapeze would be a really, really good way.
What, like circus trapeze?
Yep, exactly. Exactly the conversation I
Burt
had.
Lancaster and Gina Lollobrigida.
Yeah, it was exactly the same sort of conversation I had with her. What you mean, circus trapeze? And she said, yes, I do. And what was interesting, from different demographics, we got from maybe young women in Brixton to older men in Croydon, we had the same sort of conversations that were going on, which was, I just remembered that I enjoyed being good at something, or I actually got some fun back in my life, and it gave me a time to forget about my issues. So it was very important when sport and health and good health actually helps in actually helping people into employment. So those are two big things that we've done. From there, we spawned one of the women who went to the trapeze started as with drama. So we also have drama, and during the lockdown, that was immensely helpful. We did drama by Zoom, which was a lifeline to many of our candidates, because obviously when COVID started and everyone was in lockdown, there was a great fear of how that might happen, and that was a lifeline for all of our candidates, where they could actually meet, they could have a bit of fun, they could actually start thinking about sort of the positive things. So my organisation is very much about trying to get people into work, but actually being very positive about people's mental health. So that's me in a nutshell.
If you want drama,
can I just say, I mean, it's so obvious. I'm sorry, this is going to sound. It's. I promise this is not meant to sound patronising, but it almost sounds to me like you get a real thrill out of what you do. It's so obvious.
I wouldn't have been in this work if I didn't believe in what I have done, and
well,
right
certainly not for 35 years. I wouldn't have thought.
And right from the beginning, it's for me one of the great tragedies is that I would have hoped that the explanation that disabled people should be able to be in society and be in jobs and be part of everything, that argument should have been won, I always felt. But unfortunately, it hasn't. We still have that. And you look at the unemployment rates, 93% of people with learning disabilities are unemployed.
Wow.
93?
Yeah, 90% of people with severe and enduring mental health needs are unemployed. There was a recent Welsh study that during during the pandemic, that of 43 people they spoke to in Wales that were in work, half of them had lost their jobs during COVID. So again, the challenges are there, and the challenges are going to carry on. But one of the things we've got to get better at society is raising aspirations for people and making sure that people can actually get the help that they need.
If people want to get hold of you, yes.
So can I just ask really quickly? I'm really sorry. This is going to have to be in a nutshell because I know we've got Chantal waiting. I'm really sorry, but just really quickly, how do you do that? You say that you sort of want to boost that kind of sort of enthusiasm and the opposite. How would you even go about doing that?
It's about right from the beginning. We look at transition with schools. If you've got children at the age of 14, they will have work experience. Often disabled people don't get work experience. It doesn't happen to them. So we need to raise aspirations right from a young age to say jobs are not only possible, that they can actually happen, and that providing you do really, really good support and you have good employment agencies, then it is a possibility for every person, regardless of their disability.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
If people want to know more about you, Robert, and your organisation, what's the website?
If you go on to, it's under construction at the minute, so it may have a 404 on it at the minute, but it's www.statusemployment.org.uk. Or another one about supported employment is really, really useful is www.bas.org. Oh no, -org. And that will tell you all about supported employment. That's another organisation that I volunteer and I'm the treasurer of, and that will give you all the information and will give you all the information of helpful organisations in your area. So if you're wanting to sort of refer anyone or refer yourself, that's a good site to go on to get the information.
That's very interesting. I've got an idea with somebody else I'm working on another project. So I think I'll put them in touch with you. Robert Elston, thank you so much. Talk about dedication. You know, if it wasn't for heroes like you, and I don't say this lightly because Phil and I have hundreds of guests over the last couple of years, hundreds. But if it wasn't for heroes like you who just get on with it, don't moan, and just have a vision and follow that vision through, the world would be a much duller place. Bless you.
Well,
come back and see us. Come back and see us, Robert. We'd like that very much. Thanks a lot. Bye. Terrific bloke. Terrific bloke. I love it when somebody's got a vision and says, that's going to be my life goal. Speaking of life goals.
And also, can I point out as well, I have huge admiration for anyone who wears a headset that makes them look like they're about to take flight. So I'm from that perspective alone.
Robert was flying a 747 there. He's on his way to Toronto now. He's in the cockpit. Speaking of life goals, some people's life goals are just to grow out their fringe. Speaking of which...
Oh, hi, Chantal.
I can't stop it. I can't stop it. It's a running thing with me. Yes, she
no,
is.
well, most of the fringe has grown out. For those that are absolutely gripped with...
Oh, look, I've got an eyeball.
Most of it's grown out.
Now, you see, what fascinates me, before we get into why you're here, is that you said only for me, it seemed like 2 weeks ago, I'm growing out my fringe. So you're wearing all these Alice bands and all this stuff that ladies do. And suddenly, boom, it's done. It's like magic.
It's like magic.
Blooming magic.
I know. I can't tell you how it happens. It does its thing.
Is your throat all right? You feeling a little croaky?
Well, I have to say, on Monday, I had the perfect voice for radio. I had no voice at all, and it is definitely getting better. It's a little bit croaky. I'm a bit Mariella this week.
You're a bit Mariella Frostrop, the hint of the old Mariella Frostrop there.
Yeah, bit of Mariella.
Jimmy, you sound like, to be honest, you sound like you work for one of those 0890 numbers in mind, Mariella. But anyway.
That's how we met, for God's sake. What do you think? Right, I just wanted to, the last thing is from Veronica up in Edinburgh on our last guest. Forgive me for cutting into your time, Chantas. They need to change the word disabled person. It should be differently abled person, or yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's very interesting. These things take a long time, Veronica, to evolve, but we're so much better than we were. Long way to go. We'll never build a perfect machine, but stuff like this helps. Right. Oh, look, straight away, sympathy. Have a hot toddy. This is Kimmy Lash.
I'm with you all the way.
Mum's Christmas cards. Very quickly before we get into your things, the new remake, the reboot of Dalgleish. Very good. You hate it.
No, I've only watched. The reason I'm not reviewing it is I've only watched half of the first episode, and I found the first half incredibly slow. I will go back and finish it off, and I'm going to hold my judgment.
It is not quick.
Judgment till then.
I think what they've done wrong with it, it's each story is 2 hours, so each story is 2 parts.
Yeah.
The bloke whose first name is Bertie, second name I cannot for the life of me remember, playing Adam Dalgleish, is excellent. But to me, they could have got those stories into the 1 hour.
I think you're probably right.
They didn't need to slap it out for 2 hours because there's
Bertie Carvel, apparently.
That's it, Bertie Carvel. It's excellent. Anyway, that's that. Sorry. There we go.
I see. Was that it? Okay, fine. Right.
I'm just throwing it in there. That's all.
Chantal, what have you found?
Well, I wanted to go light and frothy and a bit French and a bit. We love Murder in Paradise.
You sound like you've got a bit French as well.
Yeah, hey, ease up because you've had no sleep. Don't get fruity with our guest. No biggie.
The name gives it away. But actually, Channel 5, it's not really known for its drama, but actually they've done really well in the last year with All Creatures Great and Small. And clearly the person who's commissioning drama there knows absolutely what they're doing and knows their audience incredibly well. And there's a brand new series that we mentioned very briefly a few weeks ago, but I hadn't seen it at all and I hadn't taken any notice of it, but I have now, which is called the Madame Blanc Mysteries.
Oh, yes.
And
the
it's surprisingly good. I mean, if you like Death in Paradise, it's sort of Lovejoy meets Death in Paradise with a bit of Midsummer Murders thrown in the middle of it.
Looks great.
Do you know, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, that's my next
thing. Written, starred starred by, and executive produced by Sally Lindsay, who's a Coronation Street actor.
Oh, wow.
That I think most people will recognise.
Yeah, I couldn't think of her name. It was driving me mad. And I kept
Yeah.
saying to significant
it's
other,
got
who is that?
some-
We go, we don't know.
Yeah, a great cast of very surprising people, from Paul Chuckle, one of the Chuckle brothers,
No way.
through to also just a really random group of people that you just don't quite expect to turn up. Robin Asquith, who I hadn't seen for
Yes,
years.
Robin Asquith.
Exactly. And
Did Panto with him.
yeah. Well, did you? Well, the basic premise is that Sally is a sort of she is like a Lovejoy character. She knows her antiques very well, but she goes to France because her husband has died in mysterious circumstances in France. And of course, he had been living a whole other life in France.
It's like Phil.
Yeah.
Basically, you're describing Phil Dave.
Indeed.
A mysterious man.
It's sort of thin and flimsy, but just perfect in a way. You just think, okay, I want to know why. Why did he die? What was the other life all about? And then, of course, it's all the little characters, British characters, who live in this little place in France, in southern France, all get roped into the story. And actually, it's charming. If you want a complete froth and bubble and sort of whipped cream on top of, a chocolate fudge cake, this is it. It's
So you see, yeah. So you see, for me, I'm just wondering whether or not I've got the mental capacity for any more of this style of program, because we love them. No, because I'm not sure, because I love things like Father Brown, Midsummer Murders. You've mentioned some corkers, and I just don't know whether or not is there room for any more. How different is this to those, or are they just too similar?
Well, it's only a 6-parter, Phil, so it's not as if you're going to give up too much of your life for it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that bit.
It'll be a year until they recommission it, or until the next series comes along, and I'm sure there will be a next series. It's worth it. Dip in your toe, and then I think you'll probably go, do you know, I really want to watch episode 2.
But they're so smart, aren't they? Because the weather's crap. It's grey and horrible and dark and miserable. And there you are. You're in France. The scenery looks nice. The building, the architecture, the sunshine. You think, hey, this is good. This is a good way for an hour, you know? This is great.
Yeah, and it's pure escapism. And every, on the odd winter day when you're feeling a bit low, this is the thing to pick you back up again.
In which case, I'd need 365 episodes, 6 blooming episodes. Yeah, it looks fun. Thank you for reminding us it's Sally Lindsay, because I could not remember her name. I don't watch Corrie, all that sort of stuff. Right, what else?
Okay, so if you're a fan of Miriam Margolyes and the lovely Scottish actor Alan Cumming, okay, maybe not one for you, Russ. I think Russ has left the building. I think you've both left the building. Am I going to do the show on my own today?
I hate Miriam Margolyes.
I'm afraid Miriam Margolyes isn't my favourite person.
Okay.
I have to switch off as she comes. I actually have to switch channels. That's how much.
Well, no, can I just put it this way? I actually admire her acting work, but unbelievably enough, I think she's very good at acting. But I'm afraid that she is a bit of a gob on a stick, and I don't like the way she's turned into this political mouthpiece, and that's what's disappointed me. That's what's disappointed me. But anyway,
she's ghastly. In fact, funnily enough, I had a friend come over from Santa Monica. I don't know if you know Gloria Miller. And she said, I was going to invite a friend to have drinks with us. I said, who was that? They said, oh, it's my friend Miriam Margolyes. I said to her, Glow. I actually said to her, Glow, I would have had to walk out. There was no way I could sit and have a drink with Miriam Margolyes.
And she talks so highly of you, Russ.
I don't care. I don't care. It's inexcusable. Anyway, that's another thing. She is a good actress, and she's a great voiceover. If you listen to, how much audio stuff I listen to, she's terrific. Can't take that away from her. She's an excellent actress.
Right. Okay. Well, I will give this less than 60 seconds, which is to say that BBC Scotland have made a travelogue of Miriam and Alan going around Scotland. It's not Breakout, but Scotland is beautiful. The characters are lovely. And you do get to learn a little bit more about Miriam, that most of which I felt that we knew before, but actually you get to know more about Alan Cumming, who goes back to his childhood home, which clearly was where he endured a lot of trauma as a child.
Oh, wow.
He can't bring himself to go back into his childhood home.
Can he not? Oh, that's very telling.
And so I thought that bit of it was really quite interesting because, clearly we talk about mental wellness and people who can put the past behind them and some people who can't. And actually, for that reason alone, I think it's quite an interesting watch. But if you don't get on with either character, then move on.
He's a terrific actor.
He is.
He's a very good actor. Although he was in an American series that I lasted one episode for, where he's meant to be the quirky professor, and they, hooks up with the attractive woman, and they solve crimes. And I thought, God Almighty, this is the definition of cliche nonsense. It was so, yeah, I couldn't get on with it at all.
Okay.
But otherwise, he's fantastic.
I'm auditioning to be the new Terminator.
What?
Because of the eye. Because of the eye
so.
thing.
Is that right?
No. Look. The
eye.
This is the ball over the eye. It looks like the Terminator eye. Can't believe you took me seriously. Can you imagine this being the Terminator? Do me a favour.
Phil's had no sleep.
More like the termites than the Terminator.
He got dragged in. He was about to leave the studio, and he got dragged in to produce another huge show because he just couldn't say no. He was in the wrong place at the right time, and so he's had no sleep.
It's fine. Don't mind me though. Who needs sleep? It's all good.
No, I know you can have some tomorrow, Phil. It's very overrated sleep, I think.
It really is. Very much so.
Tell me.
Anyway.
Right. Okie dokie.
I also want to tell you about, and occasionally we talk about, celebrities and their illnesses, their health, their mental well-being, and you find an interesting backstory to a famous face that you didn't know. And this one I think is particularly poignant. Paddy McGuinness, who most people will know and recognize from Top Gear and from Take Me Out.
Take me out, doesn't it?
Likey, no likey.
Yeah. No lighty. No likey, no lighty. That's it. A very, very catchy catchphrase, as we've proven. It's only been going over 10 years. Why should we know it by now? But anyway.
No. And actually, it already looks like an anachronism that was not born for this current era that we live in. But that's a different story. But actually, this is a family story of his. He's married to an absolutely gorgeous girl called Christine, who's a bit younger than him. It's not particularly pertinent, but they have 3 beautiful children. They have twins, and they have one other child, and all 3 of them are autistic. So to get one autistic child in a family is a challenge, and 3 is 3 challenges, but they are remarkable parents. The children actually are, in terms of the spectrum that they're on, they're not massively disadvantaged. They're not massively over challenged, and they can live a relatively normal life. But actually, the harmony that this set of parents have created around these children is astonishing. Where it becomes really interesting is where Paddy talks about having gone down the rabbit hole of vaccines. And vaccines clearly is a thing. You guys have been talking about it on the show this morning. And he particularly went down the rabbit hole of thinking this is all the result of the children having had vaccines that they shouldn't have had. And quite quickly he got sucked into a fairly dark place whereby he was looking for somebody to blame, and maybe vaccines were the thing. Anyway, he then says, well, he's come out of that place. He doesn't think it's about vaccines. He thinks it's about genetics, but he goes off to see Professor Baron Cohen at Cambridge University, who is the brother of, clearly there's a Baron Cohen.
Baron Cohen.
Sacha Baron Cohen's brother, clever family. And his brother is a geneticist at Cambridge. And he talks to him about where autism comes from. And then it begins to get even more interesting when Professor Baron Cohen says, it possibly is genetic, and that possibly there has been autism in the family. Maybe you and your wife would like to do a survey to see where you stand and whether you might be on the spectrum too. And I'm not going to spoil the documentary because I think everybody should watch it because it is ultimately uplifting. But it's actually the story about how they find out about how probably their children's autism was passed on from generation to the next generation. So it is beautiful. It's very well made. The BBC are really good at this stuff, and it really opens the doors to autism, and it doesn't leave you feeling depressed or deflated. And I think it's one of those docs that people need to see.
And also, Chantal, it's important not to let people feel that it's hopeless. You know, you look at something and you go, there's nothing I can do. This is hopeless. And you come away after an hour and you think, well, all right, this is all terrible, but there's nothing I can do about it. If you think there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, it's so important. That's why we're so grateful that we've got Anna Kennedy, as you know, another OBE. Sorry.
More than one.
Anna Kennedy with all her autism work, and she does a great job as well. I was fascinated because I'm not a Paddy McGuinness fan, I'll be honest with you. I can't watch Top Gear and all that stuff anymore. I used to love it. And to see that was a completely different side of him. And I thought it was, I saw the clips. I thought it was excellent. I thought, what a charming, you'd think they were kind of OK Magazine type family, and they're not. And I think that was great. It was nice to see them three-dimensional and real human beings,
Indeed. And there's also a lovely sequence where Paddy goes off to meet Paul Scholes, the footballer or former footballer, and because he has a 16-year-old son who is autistic, and he talks very openly about his son, but about how difficult it was as a relatively new parent to realize that your child was going to be challenged with autism. And it's very frank. And actually, it's great to hear people talking about that stuff because it destigmatizes it, and it clearly makes people feel less alone and as if they're having to cope with stuff in isolation, which they're not.
And takes away the kind of fear factor, if I could say so. You don't think, what the hell's going on? You can think, oh, that's somebody with autism. Now I can start to process that and approach them in a different way that's more inclusive. I suppose that's what I would say.
I mean, people are really beginning to understand autism in a different way, in a bigger way, really, because all sorts of things they're now thinking may be part of the autism spectrum, from even if you are a fussy eater and you only will eat beige food, or you will only eat green food, or you will only eat with one thing on your plate. In the old days, we just called those people fussy eaters. But now the modern understanding is that actually may be part of the autism spectrum.
I wholeheartedly believe, that every single person is on the so-called spectrum. There's just different degrees of it.
I think you're so right.
That means that someone is more severe than someone else, and therefore they stand out more from the crowd. But I believe everybody has their quirks. We call it foibles, we call it quirks, we call it whatever you want to call it. But actually, it's possibly part of a genetic way that our brains think, and we can't help it. I'm sure of it.
As this show goes on, Chantal, you're sounding more and more like Glynis Johns. It's fantastic.
Glynis Johns.
Can I suggest that, Chantal, we give your voice a rest for just a moment, because Paul Claridge has been in touch to say, TV tip for horror fans, Midnight Mass. Paul couldn't agree more. Well, give her voice a break. Don't give her a break. Anyway, TV tip for horror fans: Midnight Mass, utterly brilliantly written and acted. Couldn't agree more. Because that's on Netflix. He says set on an island off the coast of North America. I think it's called Crockett Island, if my memory serves me right. It's about a priest and his parishioners and a vampire demon. It's a seven-part mini series. It's a bit of a slow burner to start with. Couldn't agree more with that as well. It was very slow to start, but hang on in there. It gets amazing. He says with pickups, and with pickups, okay, and reveals the unexpected twists and turns. Paul, I'm feeling very smug. I guessed that from episode 2. I'm just saying. Okay, and he also goes on to say one of the stars is Henry Thomas, aka Elliot from E.T. So there you go.
Oh, really? That's what happened to Elliot from E.T.
He turned into a vampire.
I mean, how's your life? How's your life, Elliot? Well, I met an extraterrestrial. And he's right here. And then now I'm fighting vampires. It's a completely boring life I've had. You go, okay.
It is brilliant, though. That's on Netflix. Okay, Netflix. It's called Midnight Mass. I highly recommend it.
We need to get the real information on these spectrum issues. It's lovely to see many people bring this into the conversation, says Veronica up in Edinburgh. So you've touched on a lot of things today, Chantal. Thank you for that.
Also, just whilst we're on the subject, so sort of potentially, Chantal, giving your voice a little bit of a break, can I just say, I know I've been banging on about this for a long time, but the BBC have been putting up classic comedies on their iPlayer recently. So I've already said that I've watched all of Victoria Wood's Dinner Ladies. I said that I've watched all of Keeping Up Appearances, which is by Harold Snowd, I think it was, or something like that. Snoud. Absolutely brilliant. And now I'm worming my way through once again, and I could watch it 100 times over and never get sick of it, The Vicar of Dibley.
Oh.
It's sweet, isn't it?
That's
I
why
just
you're
love
always so
it.
cheerful.
Let's
But
dash
it
across.
is
In order to
unbelievable
help
how many
Chantal-
of the cast are no longer around anymore.
Oh,
Now,
indeed.
let's go to North America, to New York State. My professional opinion, and Asa Don Brown is very highly thought of and regarded in the psychotherapeutic community in the States.
And that's despite the cowboy hat.
That's how to win audiences over. I hate you when you don't sleep. My professional opinion is that everyone has some mental health issue. Totally right, Asa. I'm with you. It may not be diagnosable, but as humans, we are prone to these issues. You're right.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely right.
And then from Paul Andrews, Phil, I thought you were remaking.
Do you know what? If the timing was right, I absolutely would have loved to have been a part of that program. It would.
Onslow.
Can you imagine it? Phil could be Onslow. Do me a favor. No, I rather picture myself as maybe the new Emmett. I could live with that. I can't play the piano, but I could live with it being the new Emmett, I think.
Oh, God, that kills me. That absolutely kills me. It is. There's some interesting stuff floating around. I mean, I must say, though,
you don't get away that lightly, and Russ is making one foot in the grave.
No, I'm too old and grumpy. I can't even play Victor Meldrew now. He's too young and hip.
I don't believe that. Hey, thank you.
Phil could be Sheridan. Yes, I don't think this is casting Made in Heaven, but it's quite.
You are so
interesting. It's interesting.
The problem is, though, I don't think I could because I don't have a degree in needlework and tapestry, so I don't think I could have done it.
Well, they change it to he has an obsession with cravats. It's interesting.
Hey, I'm polo neck at the moment. It's cold.
Oh, you are, yeah, of course, you are the milk tray man. No, oh yes, here we are. Dope Sick. I beg your pardon. On Disney. Somebody else mentioned that in the comments up above. Dope Sick. This is on Disney. And then, of course, I'm trying to rest your voice, Chantal. And everyone's going on about the Peter Jackson Beatles thing, which I'm not on Disney, so I'm not going to be able to see
Indeed.
it.
Now then, Chantal, the question is, do you have any quickfire suggestions as we hurtle towards the top of the hour?
Well, quickfire, I would say if you never saw a film that was really not given much promotion at all when it came out in 2009, and like Christmas, it comes around every Christmas. It's a film called Nativity, which was funded.
Oh,
and made
really?
No, it's lovely.
Oh, Chantal, come on.
Stop it. It's gorgeous.
I'd like to hear what our special guest has to say, Philip.
It's lovely. It's a very, very sweet Christmas film. And it actually has to be added to the list of Christmas films. We even have Sky Christmas now on the Sky Channel. And Nativity with Martin Freeman is absolutely worth watching. Whether you like it or not, Phil, it is very sweet. It's a complete family film. Freeman is a teacher preparing the school nativity play. They're in a competition against the local private school. He pretends that a producer from Hollywood is going to come and produce it. This gets into the press. It's all a lot of nonsense. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but sit down with a mince pie and a cup of tea and watch the movie. That's it. That's all you've got.
I'll be round in 20 minutes. That sounds fun. I was sitting having a coffee with Ray Gelato at Bar Italia a few weeks back, just having a casual coffee there. And I said, oh my God, it's Martin Freeman. And blow me, Martin Freeman walks over. Hi, Ray. How are you? I'm going, hi, great to see you. Chat. It goes off. And I go, Ray, I've known you for years. You've never mentioned you knew Martin Freeman. Oh, yeah. We go way back. I'm like, what? Fantastic.
Nice, man.
Wow.
Time for one more.
One more. If you want to stretch the brain a bit, get a bit of history thrown in, watch, and for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons for the name, watch Vice, which is it's a movie. Came out.
It's fantastic.
Brilliant. Came out in 2018, I think. It is about it's about American politics.
Donald Rumsfeld, right?
America being dragged into the Afghanistan war. It is about Dick Cheney, who was vice president.
Dick Cheney, it's a terrific film.
Who was quite a duplicitous human being and really not very good for American politics ultimately. But it's a very good movie. It's on the BBC iPlayer. And if you want to stretch your brain and get a load of history at the same time, it's definitely worth watching.
Really
Got
good.
a lot of awards nominations. It wasn't a box office success, but it's definitely worth watching.
Totally. Chantal, thank you so much as ever. Yes, get better.
I will.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There we go. Right. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much to Chantel. Thank you, of course, to Robert Elston and, of course, Dr. Amika as well. To all of our guests have been terrific. Wow, what a show. We've been very busy today.
It was busy. Let's get busy. Issy wizzy, let's get busy. That's a sooty show for you. We will have a
Close
wonderful
enough.
weekend. Try and stay
Yes.
try and stay warm. Phil, do us
See-
all a favor. Try and get some sleep.
Bye-bye. We've got to
See you
go. Goodbye.
See you Monday. Goodbye.